So this video looks specifically at the mass participation side of participation and performance, and we'll look at the organisations and some of the strategies that are in place to try to encourage people to take part. The specification specifically asks you to demonstrate knowledge and understanding of government and national governing body initiatives, so we'll have a little look at those, and of course you'll have to do your own research into those more specifically, and I'd recommend looking at your own national governing body, because then this will be ammunition for you to talk about when it comes to your EPIP. So you'll have seen this in your booklet, and this is just really a reminder to you of the structure. So we've got our development pyramid. In terms of mass participation, we're looking primarily at the bottom two levels, and the green colouring is the associated mass participation organisations and perhaps questions you need to be able to answer. Again, just to remind you, the yellow there, bear in mind when we're going through these the different ways in which these strategies or the things in place for people might be funded. So as we said earlier, the development pyramid, the bottom two levels refer to the more mass participation side of things, trying to get people involved, which is essentially what mass participation is. It's about literally masses of people taking part in some form of physical activity, because we've already addressed there are lots of benefits of being physically active, not just the physical fitness benefits, but healthiness in terms of your mentality and your social disposition. So there's huge benefits for you individually and for our government and for our nation in terms of having a healthy society. You'll have often probably heard this phrase as well, grassroots, and actually this means the lower levels of that development pyramid, where sport's primarily done to enjoy and to have fun. There may be an element of competition, but it's really not so much about winning. It's about introducing people to loads of different sports and activities, teaching them the fundamentals, the real basic parts of those skills, and encouraging them to want to continue and take part, with a view, obviously, to continuing throughout their lives. Remember, this BALS, this balanced, active, healthy lifestyles, refers to people maintaining physical activity and maintaining those health benefits throughout their life. And again, you should be familiar with these two phrases, so lifelong physical activity and lifetime sport. Whether it's sports activities that people do and they play competitive sport throughout their life, or whether it's any other form of physical activity, which might be walking the dog or gardening or cycling to work or yoga or aerobics. So it doesn't have to be just competitive sports in terms of mass participation. And who should be taking part in this sort of mass participation section? Really, it should be anybody and everybody. There should be no reason why somebody shouldn't be able to take part in an activity if they wish to. So how wealthy you are, your age, your gender or ethnicity really shouldn't be a factor. However, we'll be discussing in later sections that this possibly is a factor. But mass participation should provide access, so opportunity, provision and esteem factors for everybody and anybody. And as we just mentioned, there may be these kinds of constraints in place which would affect people, whether you leave school where participation's been expected and then after school you choose not to, or any of these other constraints that again we'll chat about a bit more later. And these are again the 5 target groups that you need to be aware of in terms of any benefits to them taking part in mass participation or any constraints or limitations to them taking part equally in participation mass activities. This is data actually from an active people survey. So it's a national survey which is done over the phone, looking at and questioning people in terms of their activity levels. And you can see this is actually those that fulfill the recommendations, that 30 minutes 5 times a week of activity, and the numbers are frighteningly low, and this is the Brighton and Hove area percentages, so that's quite frightening really. 34% actually do that minimum level of activity. And here's another graph really from Sport England, just to try to show how different activities are, and it actually shows 2011, 12 and 12, 13, where there's been slight increases and where there's been drops. And interestingly, swimming is very big in terms of an activity, so maybe we should do more swimming in schools to promote that. Very briefly, don't get freaked out by this, but this is really just to illustrate how complicated the structure of our sports organisations are. And we're looking mainly at mass participation at the moment, where we'll later talk about Sport England and the national governing bodies, and also things like the local authorities, so local government and schools and education, and how they promote mass participation. But from here, you can see what a nightmare and how complex, and it's decentralised, so there's lots of, each organisation kind of controls itself. So these organisations are central, and Sport England is obviously most important, but we will look at all of those factors as we go through. So in terms of a national context, mass participation is a very important thing for the government, and they have set targets that between this time and in the future, or they had set targets, I should say, for 2 million more people to be involved in sport and physical activity. Half of that, so 1 million, would be developed from the health sector, so the Department of Health, and 1 million of that would come from the sports sectors, so Sport England and all our national governing bodies. And in order to achieve this, there have been strategies in place. And one of Sport England's biggest strategies is Grow, Sustain, Excel, which we'll look at in a moment. Similarly, following the 2012 Olympics, the Department of Culture, Media and Sport is really trying to take advantage and exploit what the Olympics offered us as a nation in terms of motivation and interest in sport. And they have Places People Play, which is a strategy. Similarly, they have the school games, another strategy, to try to get more people engaged in sport and physical activity in one form or another. And you must do some research into those strategies. So this is Grow, Sustain, Excel, Sport England strategy, essentially trying to get more people involved in sport, so grow the number of people that are taking part, to keep people involved, so sustain them, reduce the dropout, and then obviously from more people participating, it could be that we have more people who excel. So if we have more people at the base of our pyramid, then we can have perhaps more people becoming elite performers and excelling. So Sport England is trying to grow the baseline, keep people involved, and hopefully promote more excellence as a result of that. And this is the Olympic legacy that the government, the DCMS, this is their strategy, Places People Play. And some of the specific things involved in that, and actually I just want to mention, don't forget that we're talking about Olympic and Paralympic, so we're talking about everybody. And places play. So places is about money being put into developing facilities, upgrading facilities. People, so trying to give funding to initiatives. People can apply for Sportivate funding, and they'll be given some money if they have an idea that they might wish to do in their community to increase mass participation. See if you can find out a good example of a Sportivate funded activity. Sports makers, so this is an acknowledgement and an encouragement of trying to get young people to become leaders. And basically you have to log up 10 hours of voluntary time, whether that's you making your mates go and play football in the park, or you doing some walking with some older people, or you helping coach at your club. You clock up 10 hours and you're a sports maker. And don't forget, actually, at the Olympics we had the games makers, who were very central volunteers who made things happen there. And then play, so basically they're encouraging you to set yourself a challenge, obviously something sport related, and hopefully you achieve that and you become engaged in some new activity. So this is the People, Places, Play, or Places People Play strategy, the Olympic legacy. Here's another element of that. So this is just a different sort of visual of it. Places People Play. the same things we're talking about: facilities, leaders involvement and performance involvement. And again, money going to disability sport and competitions, and money going via our national governing bodies, all aiming to create sporting opportunities in every community. So mass participation is very much about community activity. Very briefly then, looking at a regional and county level, we've got school sports coordinators and the school sport partnership. Now this was brought in, funding was given by the government, so you may have had sports coordinators in your schools all trying to promote physical activity and get more young people playing more activity. But in terms of the government strategies, these are things you must be aware of. This could be mark scheme answer. National curriculum, so jumping back, Youth Sport Trust, these are organisations and some elements linking to the previous slide. So Youth Sport Trust, big organisation linked to PE, overseeing PE, and they're trying to get this 5 hours of PE and sport a week, 2 from curriculum, 1 organised through sport, and possibly 2 others maybe linking with the community. Look up these strategies. UK ambassadors, so young people who have been recognised as role models to encourage other young people to take part. Obviously the national curriculum, which you've all experienced, the factors within in school, in your core PE, which you have to take part in. Sports ambassadors, so the people, the athletes named here, hopefully some of which you recognise, these big profile people there to try to encourage and motivate you to take part. Kite marking, something schools try to achieve and be recognised for, so they can get certain recognition, active mark or sports mark, if they achieve certain levels of participation. And then finally sports leaders, so you may have done GSL at school or you may be doing CSL at college, and again that's engaging young people with being leaders and encouraging participation. Very, very briefly, the national curriculum. These are the areas of activity that most of which you should have included. And in theory, you're supposed to do 2 hours of PE a week, which should make you physically active, but we might question that, especially in primary schools. So you can see education should be a mixture between the PE curriculum and education, recreational activity, trying to promote you and maybe joining clubs, so it's important for schools to have links with clubs, and obviously providing a more competitive element where you might become more elite and move up that pyramid. This strategy, PESUP or PESLs, actually doesn't exist anymore, and these again things you must do some more timely research on, but these are basically strands of this strategy. So you've got sports colleges in your area. Dorothy Stringer is a sports college. You need to understand what they have provided and why they were put into place. Club links, obviously trying to give young people opportunities to continue their activities, looking after the programs and making programs more structured. Ensuring your teachers are well developed in teaching, encouraging swimming for lots of reasons, step into sport, so a volunteering and leadership strand, and school sport partnership, which I mentioned a moment ago. Look at the structure of that and how it's helped. However, it doesn't exist anymore because the funding has been removed. So PESUP and PESCL actually came from the government in 2002, where they tried to ensure that 2 hours of PE was done, and it's all about high quality PE and school sport. However, and this is a breakdown, so 2 hours curriculum, 1 hour extracurricular, and then an additional 2 hours which might link in with club links, and these are some of the benefits. I'm not going to stop and talk about that because I'm running out of time. Doesn't exist anymore. Have a pause of the video and have a closer look at the different contributions from the different strands or organisations. So then we have Albion in the community, who have lots of strategies in place to promote mass participation in all sorts of target groups. So, you know, it's not just about playing football, it's about all sorts of strands of people playing. Our local authority provides a lot of things. Their motto is more people, more active, more more often. You may recognise the Take Part Festival every summer in Preston Park, or Ping, the table tennis tables that have appeared around the city. And really there's lots of things that they do in vulnerable areas in the city to try to promote involvement in some way. Because you can be involved in more than just being a player, you could be an official or an instructor or a coach, or a volunteer, to be honest. Volunteers are critical in promoting activity levels. And then really quickly, finally, Sport England ensures that national government bodies have targets that they try to achieve within their whole sport plan, and their funding depends on it.